So today we're talking about how to build a product universe, tactics of product-led branding. So Anna, I'm going to hand over to you because this is one of the topics that you've been writing about, you've been thinking about quite a bit. So tell me about, what you mean by product universe and where your mind is.
So this is how it actually started. It's based on my work at Banana Republic and Esprit. When you start thinking that hey, you can build brand through cultural products, which is merchandising, collaborations, events, creative partnerships, content, brand codes, and so on. But what actually really needs to happen is for marketing and merchandising to work really, really close together and to actually have such a definition of product ranges, collections, hero products, foundations, but then also classics, capsules, limited editions, collaborations, that becomes part of a brand's business plan. And it becomes part of a brand strategy. And what I mean by that, it literally, you can say, hey, if an entire product output, and most retailers add. Solution to more consumption is more products, So you end up with SKUs, which are product numbers that are really long tail. And you sometimes don't even know what is going on. And when merchandisers look at their Excel spreadsheets, they look mostly at the product performance. Did it sell? Did it not sell? So this is building upon that, but then also looking at what are the hero products? What is the purest distillation of the brand? Can we use that as a fodder for collaborations? Can we use special materials? Can we have that? It's something that we do year over year over year, but reissue in different colors, different materials with different creative partners as part of different capsules. What is our collection? What is that interpretation for seasonal trends through our filter? And what are those foundational products that go never out of stock? They're always there. And then what is the cultural impact of all of those? How do you build merch around it? How do you build collaborations around it? How do you build content around it? How do you create sort of structure that says, hey, we are going to use all those different products to start a conversation with different members of the creative class, with their key personas. They're going to buy most of this. And all of what I just explained is relevant because it really helps you fine-tune your financial plan. It really helps you fine-tune how much money do you want to make each month, each quarter, each year, and to go from that objective backwards and say, we need X amount of hero products, we need X amount of collections, X amount of foundations, and this is how our promotional plan looks like. Heroes never go on sale, for example. Foundation goes on sale after 3 months. Collections go after 1 month, never more than 30%. So let's unpack this further, but I first want to hear your experience.
One thing that was from the previous conversation that we had, and because you and I come from slightly different career perspectives and backgrounds, and in the past decade or so, you've spent quite a bit of time in the fashion luxury retail world. And my background, part of it is that, but I don't necessarily exclusively focus in that industry just because, we work with multiple clients. So we may have a fashion client, we may have a sports.
This is applicable beyond. It's applicable beyond apparel. It's applicable to all sorts. So I'll let you get there.
Yeah. So I want
to set the expectation to the audience that actually it can be applied to CPG as well.
Yeah. So like the last time, I want to unpack it from a non-sexy, non-fashion perspective a little bit.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So where my mind goes even before this conversation, when I was thinking about it, and I want to sort of use this conversation as a way to unpack how some products or some brands that are more utility driven that can have cultural influence. So an obvious sort of utility brand is tech. And something that everybody knows about is, let's say, Google, right? And because a company like Google because we talked about Apple, and everybody talks about Apple. I want to stay away from Apple a little
Let's
bit.
talk about
But
Google. Let's talk
yeah,
about
yeah,
Cisco or Oracle or
yeah. But
IBM. I'm kidding.
it's got a universe of products that they introduce over time, and they try to every sizable tech brand with scale, they try to trap you as much as possible into that universe, right? So Google, which started as a search engine company, and then they went into email, they went into cloud computing, like Drive, and productivity tools like calendar and doc and so forth, right? So they start with maybe this is this is a slightly different perspective because it's not necessarily a hero product, but they have a Trojan horse first, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then from there, they find opportunities to quote unquote invade into people's lives in different ways. So in Google's case, let's say the Trojan horse was search. And then people became used to, let's quote unquote, let's Google it. And then found ways or opportunities to expand what was a little tiny speck in people's lives, and found other ways to expand in that universe. And then maybe not before you know it, but over a course of decade or even 2 decades, now like I'm so embedded into Google that it's going to be very difficult for me to step away from that universe to go into, say, like the Microsoft universe.
Correct. I think that's somewhat different, but I think let's kind of connect those two things.
Yeah.
Because for me, what you're talking about is basically how tech companies create network effects and how
Yes.
they create modes, like how they create high switching costs, basically. And for you, it's much all those different products are more valuable. The more products you use, each individual product is more valuable. Google Calendar, Google Gmail, then search, then I don't know what else is there, AI now, and
Docs,
so on.
yeah.
Because the more data you share about yourself, the more tailored to you it is, so it kind of switching costs are really high because not only all your friends are there, but also like you spend so much time and effort on sharing that information, so it's kind of more useful for you as you interact with it. So that's number one. But if you start looking at the product pyramid, I think it still can be applied, because I can tell you there's some, maybe AI is their hero product because people who use it are maybe not every day and it's priced differently, or maybe there are cloud services and there's certain services. These are the products they make money. Maybe those are B2B services. Then their foundational products are what Trojan horse that you described. And then they
I
have
see.
Rei
Yeah.
and Drive and something like that, which they can be like, their collection, they're always adding something because they need to compete with everyone else. So this is a very blunt instrument, but I'm just trying to show you how. But then I think what combines our perspectives is where the cultural products come in.
Yeah.
Which is, how does a Google surround each of their tech products with merge, collaborations, events? How do they go? How do they attract new people to Gmail? Not just to product-led marketing, which is like, at the beginning, it was like, sent from iPhone, or like, or add 5 friends, referrals, like that's product-led marketing, literally, which was like, how do you have growth through those? But it's more about how do you actually participate in culture as Google. What is your cultural program? How does like Gmail or AI or Drive or any of that does merch, for example, limited edition? Like, what does that mean? And I'm not talking about those like stupid merch, those like balls that you can like squeeze. It's kind of like, go with Palace, or I don't know, Supreme, or High Snobiety, and have a line of how would Google look if it was a t-shirt or a pair of sneakers.
I think when it comes to like more functional brands or functional utility companies like Google, right? I think the way they become part of culture is through behavior. So for
Brand
instance,
behavior or
oh no, user behavior, user
user
behavior,
behavior? Okay.
user behavior. Yeah. So and then it can only happen to certain limited number of brands to have that cultural clout. Because I think in order for a user behavior to become culture, I
Mm.
think you need scale. I think. So
Absolutely. But I think that even
yeah,
now, I know I like where you're going with that, but I
yeah,
think you don't even need such scale. You just need fans. You need a niche of those, like almost you almost need a lot of subcultures, which is way
yeah.
more realistic because look at
True,
there is
true,
no
true.
one mega trend. There are a gazillion trends happening at the same time.
Right,
And
right, right,
one of
right.
them explodes, but you could not, and then it dies down very quickly. So I think the same sort of social dynamic happens
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
user groups, you know?
Because like when you look at a Google, Facebook, like certain actions that people take when using those products, right? They are like searching or even just liking things or
Mm-hmm.
swiping.
Mm-hmm.
Those actions and behaviors become part of the cultural vernacular. So, like, oh, do you swipe left? Do you swipe right? Wasn't a behavior that we used to have 15 years ago,
Correct. And
right?
it has a value judgment, ethical component. Oh, like swipe left, like no, you know? Or,
Yeah,
you know, so I do think, but you know what it reminds me of?
yeah,
You know how people always say, oh, technology is neutral, it's how people use it. That's not true at all. Technology
mm,
is never neutral. It's always like a set of values is designed into it. Like look at the AI now. It has
yeah.
human biases
Very
designed
much
in.
so. Very much so. Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? So even with like Facebook designed privacy, so there is none. And then Apple came and designed privacy, so they're like, oh, look at us. We care about your privacy, unlike all those other tech companies. You know what
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean? That's not random. It's design. And that was by design was swipe left, swipe right. So first we design those values, aesthetics, judgments into technology, and then it influences us
yeah.
back.
One thing,
I mean, look at algorithms. They're like sharing with us the most outrageous content. Like they think that we are like, what works best is anger, hate, like strong
yeah.
reactions.
I know that I mentioned that I don't necessarily talk about Apple, but one of the things that came to my mind was that, when you were talking about fans, right? Way back when Apple introduced the iPod and then
Mm.
the headphones, the product had a very iconic white
Yes.
look, and at the time it was very rare.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I remember this is like back in 2003, 4, 5, back then when iPod first came out. And people who bought the iPod had the white headphone. And it kind of became not so much a status symbol, but like a visible community of people who were, because like
Mm.
at the time, like Apple was a small player. It wasn't the dominant player that it's become
Mm.
since then.
No, absolutely. And I would say
Yeah.
it is a status symbol, and it was the best advertising Apple could have
Right, right,
product
right.
like branding hope for. Because like even later when they stopped doing like when they were like AirPods, you know
Yeah.
how people would walk around the office with that?
Yeah.
And you're like, what? Like what do so it became like the first adopters were
Yeah.
those. I mean, I think now everyone does it, but I think then we were like, wait, like you knew who bought it, people who
Right,
buy
right, right, right.
first round. Yeah.